We're focused on the data metrics as much as we can today. In this presentation, I wanted to focus a little bit more on the why, what the point of, what we're trying to accomplish in the data collection related to antibiotic use. And hopefully this couples well with the USDA presentations to follow. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the need, or what we perceive as the need for additional data, particularly on-farm data. And then in a broader context, and then focus in as sort of an example on FDA's current strategy, and describe what we are sort of visioning as not a complex solution, no simple, or a complex problem, no simple solution. Similar here, a multifactorial assessment is our vision. So the need for on-farm antibiotic use data. Assessing the impacts of stewardship or policy initiatives, anything that's attempting to modulate antibiotic use with the intent of positively impacting antibiotic resistance, remains a very high priority, and one that's shared by almost every stakeholder involved in the issue. Most folks can agree that we could use better data than we have right now to really answer this question. How are these initiatives, stewardship or policy initiatives, how are they working? Additional information regarding on-farm use and resistance is needed to provide more meaningful metrics to supplement the data that we already have. So that last point is a point that is sometimes missed by some folks. There is a fair amount of existing data. Some of it better than others, but no single piece of that information is sufficient in its own right. But our vision is in order to assess the impacts of these various initiatives, to collect additional data, and together with the existing data, to be able to tell the story of how these efforts are impacting the public health issue of antibiotic resistance. So the example we're going to focus on is FDA's current policy. The objectives of that policy are boiled down into two things. Eliminate the production uses of medically important antibiotics, those antibiotics that are important in human medicine, move away from the production uses to a place where these medically important drugs are only being used to meet animal health needs. The second objective is to make sure that these same medically important antibiotics are only available under vet oversight, or are no longer available over the counter. So these are the two objectives of our strategy, and along the lines of what was said earlier, which we're really approached this from a point of not trying to figure out how much of the problem or how much of the blame animal agriculture, or the uses of these drugs in animal agriculture are. But focus on how much of the solution, or how much of the solution that we can be. So this is less about attribution and more about focusing on using these drugs for animal health needs, using these drugs because we need them, and not necessarily taking action because of the blame game. The target for completing these two objectives is December of 2016, so a little over a year and a half left to go. And this is an important step. Again, this is movement towards addressing concerns related to the use of these drugs in animal agriculture. There's all sorts of, if you read the media, as I'm sure folks here do, there's all sorts of other concerns as well. We're not expecting the issue to go away. Certainly it hasn't. But to continue to engage and to create productive dialogue and movement. This strategy can roughly be broken down into a few different implementation phases. The first part, where we're essentially asking the pharmaceutical companies that hold these products to voluntarily change the way their products are labeled, to remove the growth promotion claims, and to change from over-the-counter to prescription or veterinary feed directive status. So that first step in the process is having the drug companies change the product labels. All the 26, I think 25 now, companies that hold these products have provided written commitment, and several of them have already started changing their products. Now the next step is actually aligning those products, and we're really targeting, trying to do this in an organized manner, and to not pull the plug all at once. Early in the process, this 3-year period was very deliberate. Give ourselves time to prepare, to give the pharmaceutical companies time to prepare, to give the feed manufacturers and the vets and the producers and everybody else involved time to prepare for this. So still a few more years left, but we've been talking about this for quite some time. We're trying to do this in a relatively synchronized and orderly manner. So that's going to be the next phase, is aligning these products. And there's a whole lot of work going on behind the scenes. The metaphor is the duck swimming, the feet paddling underneath the surface of the water. But the plan is for all of this to happen by December of 2016. So the third phase, this initial part is changing the product labels, but the intent is to change to some degree the way the products are being used. To ensure that they're being used only to meet animal health needs, and to be sure that the veterinarian is involved in the decision-making process for the use of these drugs. So if we're planning for these changes to happen mainly synchronously, mainly sort of all at the same time at the end of 2016, any of those changes on actual drug use practices directly related to that, we'd expect to really start happening in 2017. So that gives you a timeline for what we're expecting to happen in terms of the impact on the ground. Now, I will acknowledge that this isn't the only initiative out there, and this isn't the first thing that's been done, and there's been a whole lot of other pressures and forces and changes happening along the way. So it's not necessarily a clean initiative in and of itself. And there's been several announcements by major by major companies in the last several months even about their own initiative. McDonald's just had an announcement a week or so ago as well. So this isn't the only thing that's going on, certainly. Related to assessing the impacts, and particularly the assessing the impacts on drug use practices, because assessing the product change is essentially a checklist. A lot more difficult to assess the impact on drug use practices that those change of product labels will have. This multifactorial assessment that we have in mind to evaluate the impact on drug use and resistance essentially puts together 3 different general categories of information. One is our antibiotic sales data, which is most folks may be familiar with that. We put out annual summary reports of summarizing the kilograms of antibiotics sold for use in food-producing animals. This data is useful. It sort of gives us an indication of the drug that's leaving the pharmaceutical companies, the manufacturers, drug entering the distribution pipeline, so to speak. It has some serious limitations. It doesn't really get us very close to how the drugs are actually being used on farm. We are undertaking some rulemaking, and this actually dates back to 2012 with a Federal Register notice looking for public comment on potentially asking for estimates of sales by species or some other things like that. So we're considering some ways to possibly enhance that data a little bit more, but the sales data itself is one stream of data, again, insufficient in its own right, but does have some utility. The second major category is on-farm information, and this is really where the drug use data and drug resistance data really come together. That's where the exposure is really. Actually, the exposure is more on a molecular level, but we're not really going to get there. But where the drug is administered to the animal and where resistance can potentially be measured in the environment or from the animals themselves. That stream of data is one that there are some, and USDA is going to speak to this a bit, but there are some existing sources of data on the farm regarding use and resistance, but this is the main focal area for additional enhancements here. The third major stream is resistance in the food supply, and that, for all intents and purposes, is our NARMS program, National Antimicrobial Resistance Monitoring System. We collect antibiotic resistance susceptibility data currently, and in the future some genomic data resistance patterns in animals at slaughter, retail meat, and CDC collects some data on human foodborne illness. So these three major categories of information are what we're looking to assess the impact of this particular initiative, but in some respects any other initiatives as well on use practices on resistance, and in particular of changing use practices on resistance. So as our colleague from Kansas State said, I'm one of the dumb policy folks. So here's a simple graphic, so I can keep it together. Here's the three different streams, and at least our vision is that we really need all of them. And I was going to include a slide where you just have the sales data on its own. And certainly there's a fair bit of pressure to interpret and to base policy decisions and to make assessments solely on the basis of the kilograms of active ingredient marketed in isolation, even of resistance data, or in isolation from the on-farm data as well. But our vision is really put all of this together. No one thing by itself. Even the on-farm use and resistance data itself may have some limitations, certainly connecting to the public health issue on the far end of it. But in terms of capacity for granularity and precision, the sales data has some value will continue to have some value to add as well. So to kind of sum this up on a timeline, where we are right now in 2015, I guess early is a little bit subjective, but our plan is to have a broad public meeting here later this spring, early summer, pull all folks together and lay out our vision and the plan to collect these data and analyze it and interpret it in this context. In later 2015 and moving into 2016, implement the data collection. At the end of 2016, those label changes will be completed. So at that point, we should at least have a year or so of new data collected in advance of the major bulk of those changes occurring, in addition to those existing data streams, the sales data, the NARMS data, which go back for years. 2017, we really expect the major changes to occur, and then really 2018 or so is when we would see the first report, or first capacity really to report out on that year 2017, the first year where we're really expecting to even potentially be able to observe an impact. So the bright line there in the middle is not as bright as it is on this page, as I mentioned, that although we're intending to a degree possible synchronously change these products, to prevent chaos in the marketplace and so forth, there's been changes ongoing for years, frankly. So with that in mind, that gives you a feel for what our vision. I'm going to page back to the very first slide here, the need slide, and just reiterate that really what we're looking to do is to assess the impacts of any of these initiatives. Really, they're all antibiotic stewardship initiatives focused on the way these products are used with the interest of minimizing and slowing the progression of antibiotic resistance. And to do this, we think we need a number of different things. No one piece of information, no one data point, certainly, and no one data source we believe is sufficient to do that. So